We've got a number of people, so a mixed meeting, some people on Zoom. So again, usual things in terms of just make sure your microphones are used so that people on Zoom can hear. For any of those who are here in the public forum or in public for the rest of the day, toilets are out the door on the left. If the fire alarm's activated, if you go out through these doors or these doors and assemble in the car park out that way. I'll open with karakia. Kia tau mai te maramatanga, kia tau mai te rangi marie, kia tau mai te kaha me te aroha mō tēnei kaupapa, hui e tai ki e. Don't believe we have any apologies between here and on Zoom. I think we're all in attendance. As we now come to the public forum, we've got 5 registered speakers, and I'll just work through them in order that I've got them on my agenda. So first up, we have Joanna Santa Barbara. And Lindsay, welcome Lindsay and Joanna. Yeah, well, whichever ones you like, you can sit as close or far apart from each other as you wish. And if you push the button on the microphone in front, and when the little red light comes on, you're good to go. I understand you've got a slide presentation as well. So, and you've got 5 minutes to use pretty much as you wish to. Okay, so you're here on behalf of the climate.
Nelson Tasman Climate Forum.
Okay, all good. You know.
Thank you, Tim. Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Joanna Santa Barbara. This is Lindsay Wood.
Kia ora to all of you. Thank you.
And there's David Eyre is part of the work behind this and is in the public forum. And note that part of the way through, there'll be one of us will have a change of role. We 3 people have been wrestling with the question of how fast does Tasman need to decarbonise? The opportunity to speak to you today is pretty important to us because oh, I know. I'm not sure if that's working. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. Because we're in love with this earth and its thin, fragile ecosphere, the only known life in the universe, we see what's precious being trashed, but I can't show it. I'm not getting. Okay. Life as lovely as this, including us humans and our societies and cultures, threatened by the overheating of our planet. So what drives us? We're determined to do our bit for the next generation, to safeguard our kids, our human communities, and all other species. We're going pretty much all out to drive emissions down. A world at 2.7 degrees, our present trajectory is unthinkable. We're influenced by climate scientists. I am having such difficulty here. Right. Climate scientists that we know and respect, and by UN Secretary General Guterres's ringing cry that dramatic immediate climate action is needed and that leaders must lead. The bad news lands on our screens faster and faster, with the September just past having a global temperature the hottest yet recorded at 1.7 degrees above pre-industrial average. And of course, this week's bad news on the West Antarctic ice sheet melt, which is why we're here with you, our community leaders. We're sure that you too love this earth. It's this fragile ecosphere that you also feel we should do our share. And we want to come back to you for a longer, deeper dialogue on these life-changing matters.
Thanks, Joanna. So I just want to run through what our group did in terms of what we sought to do and what we found. First of all, we tried to understand what doing our share really meant in terms of mitigation against climate change. We also wanted to find the scale and speed of decarbonisation that we had to follow to be compatible with that. We wanted to validate our results with people who were specialists in the area. So, for example, we ran our methodology past the scientists of the Climate Change Commission. And we wanted to model some scenarios to give us a picture of the suite of strategies that we might need in order to be mitigating at the right rate. This is just a snapshot we're going to give you. There's a bit of geeky stuff at the end of the slides for those people that like that sort of thing. We won't be talking to it, and we'd be pleased to share you more detail if you wish. So what did we find? Well, one of the things was that in terms of our share, we found we had some pretty stark choices. One of them is, do we do our most to secure a livable future? That is in alignment, say, with the Paris Agreement commitments and our own Zero Carbon Act. And they are framed around us doing our best to keep within 1.5 degrees global warming. That's not a good place. Let's be clear about that. It's worse than our recent experience of climate activities like Cyclone Gabrielle and so on. Or do we keep doing what we can when we can, which tends to be what everybody's approach to this is. I'm not just talking about Tasman there, but it's similar to what we're doing, and it's heading towards the 2.7 degrees or more that Joanna's talking about, and that is a really bad place to go. Should we just accept that that's where we're heading? And what might doing our share actually involve? Well, we decided that a robust basis for our work was what's known as the IPCC synthesis report that came out earlier this year. It's probably the most substantial climate report, or most recent one. We also are committed to not exceeding 1.5 degrees overheating. There are very compelling reasons to treat that as a serious threshold. We wanted to focus on action through to 2030 because we think it's actually critical we get policies on the way and don't kick this can down the road. And we also believe that we should fight for every 10th of a degree, or fight against every 10th of a degree overheating, because every bit counts on this difficult journey we're on. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a switching problem again. It worked really nicely before, but okay, thank you. So what did we find? Well, if we start immediately, as in the beginning of next year, and we decarbonize at 8.05% each year till 2030, plus add a factor for population growth, that's the sort of thing we'll need if we get going right away.
8.5%, 8.05%, Lindsay, that's huge. Are you serious?
Well, it is. It's what the numbers give us. We don't like it either, Joanna. It's really bad. But the thing is that it also gets worse if we delay.
It gets worse?
We've done a study on what will happen if we delay this and what has happened because we've delayed it. That graph up there, each of those columns tells you that's the rate at which we decarbonize for every year we start. So, for example, if we start right at the beginning of 2024, there's the 8.05% plus growth that I just mentioned. Had we started back in 2019, which is when this study begins, also incidentally when Nelson declared its climate emergency, it would only be 5.2%. Don't take the word only too lightly. That's still a very big challenge. But the real thing is, here's what happens if we delay just 2 years. That rate of decarbonisation climbs by 40% to over 11%. So every delay that we put into our serious action comes with real cost to it.
That's terrible. Well, what does 8% plus growth look like on the ground, say, in transport?
It's no accident you've chosen transport, I think, Joanna. Some of you may know this pie chart. It's from the draft Tasman greenhouse gas inventory, and it shows the makeup of the region's greenhouse gas emissions. This study is one where we're dealing with non-methane gases. Methane is dealt with through other regulatory environments. So if we take out the methane from waste and the methane component of agriculture, what's left is the non-methane gases that our study has focused on. And they amount to about 58% of the total, and 2/3 of it is what Joanna's just asked about, and that is transport. So we want to give you a sense of what might happen if we try to tackle transport, because if we don't tackle it, we actually can't solve our decarbonisation problem. Yay for the e-buses, first of all. I have a love affair with them, but anyway, that's not all about them. But we do need a lot more well-patronised e-buses as a start on this decarbonisation journey. A lot more, as in many times what we've got at the moment. Plus, not in or, it's a plus. We need to reduce single occupancy car journeys. I've said a modest reduction, but let's be clear, that is possibly our most powerful strategy for decarbonising this area. We're happy to talk more about that. Plus, expand other modes of transport. We know you've got a great active transport policy here. We've also got other things that I won't go into at the moment. Plus, these are all together. Reduce future travel demand by minimising our greenfields development, plus a substantial shift to an EV fleet. So in that case, I've suggested 25% shift, but in actual fact, that's a lot of vehicles when you do the numbers on
it. Those numbers are huge. What if we say we can't do it?
It's difficult.
So 9.5 minutes.
Thank you. We're just thank you. We do. It is difficult. We do have to get on with it, but I don't like the word can't, because we're faced with choices. We've talked about this before. Are we going to choose to do our best, or are we going to choose to just go as we can? I think the public probably don't understand the nature of these choices.
Yeah, I think you've got our councils between a rock and a hard place. Let's go straight to the last slide.
Okay. There we go, the rock and a hard place.
That's it, folks. We're between the rock of politically challenging urgent action to align us with 1.5 and the very hard place of unthinkable future temperatures if we just do what currently seems politically feasible. We three want to come back to you soon for a longer, deeper dialogue about what's needed to close that gap and inspire other regions to do the same. One thing we're sure is needed is a big thrust to increase public understanding. We'd like to see some serious funding go towards that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lindsay and Joanna. Thanks for coming in and presenting this morning. And yeah, we look forward to the continuing dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got Hank Vermeer and Melanie Drury in relation to development in Seaton Valley.
Hello. I've got I've just got some slides.
So can you share with them afterwards? Because normally if you go bringing a slide or a presentation, you need to circulate it previously so we can load it up onto the thing. Okay. If you either leave us the flash drive and we can return it to you, or just you can circulate them and we can circulate the photos and the slides later.
Oh, yeah. No. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Managed to get it down to 6, but I'll do my best. I'll talk fast. Hello, I'm Melanie Drury, and this is my partner Hank Vermeer. We live in Mapua on a piece of rural land. Remember the McKee Bluff slip? It was big. There was a lot of dirt to move. Unfortunately, most of that dirt ended up on the property next to mine, raising the land for the developer who's bought both 175 Mapua Drive and 6 Seaton Valley Road next door to me. This fill should have needed resource consent. We should have had a chance to express our concerns about the consequences this fill would have on our land. The job was rushed because of pressure to clear the slip before the summer tourist season. TDC knew there was opposition to that site being used. About 3 weeks earlier, my neighbours moved on large earth-moving gear and dug a deep swale. They kept the gear on site, which isn't cheap. It seems they knew that the fill was coming. People asked for work to cease, not just us, and a resource consent process to begin. It didn't. TDC told us the fill would be going to the Freilich subdivision from the southern end of the slip and to Perman Aparo Road corner from the northern end. The first dirty loads were to go to Roughout Island or Rabbit Island, A load of fill with greenery and branches in it was taken to Freilich, so he said no. Lucky that all of their earth-moving equipment was waiting on site at 6 Seton Valley. What a coincidence. Freilich was expected to pay for the fill. Our neighbour was paid to take it. It's strange when there were closer free options that didn't involve trucks passing the school or intersections. A lot of fill also travelled right around from the northern end through Tasman and down Seton Valley Road. That's costly. Despite protests from several parties, TDC continued to move fill to the site. We've been stalled and stonewalled for months. When we finally got our meeting in August, they seemed to see our problems, but we've since been told that the works meet permitted activity requirements. It is, of course, in TDC's best interests to find retrospectively that it was a permitted activity. It's just not the developer who's implicated here. The head of compliance says he's too busy to look at our folder of evidence or listen to the meeting recording. It's unacceptable. We do not believe that this fill meets the criteria of a permitted activity under TDC's own resource management plan on land disturbance. 18.5.2.1, soil disturbance or earthworks is a permitted activity that may be undertaken without resource consent if it complies with certain conditions. One being that the activity does not raise the level of any land to a point where it results or may result in the damming or diversion of floodwaters. If recontouring of land does not comply, it is a controlled activity, and in our case, resource consent should have been used to manage potential damage to a site of significance to Māori, the effects on groundwater, and the mitigation of adverse effects on adjacent land users. Even though we've shown proof of drain filling, floodwater diversion, increased groundwater, sediment and stormwater backing up into our place, we continue to be ignored. The TRMP says there should be no displacement or diversion of water into neighbouring properties at all. The site's been rolled to condense the fill and left bare for a year. Compliance have focused only on floodwater and said they're confident any soakage effects would have been considered. We're not. There's no mention of it in the paperwork. Diverting floodwater is not okay. It's also not okay to raise land and increase the neighbouring property's groundwater. It doesn't meet the intentions of the TRMP. David Arsenault, the only TDC staff member to visit our site, apart from Mike and Christine, has repeatedly expressed his concerns about this. Glenn Stevens said it would be a permitted activity as long as the existing drainage network wasn't compromised. He didn't anticipate off-site impacts on the drainage or neighbouring properties, but there have been impacts on us and multiple drains have been altered and no one will listen. Glenn Stevens and David Arsenault both said that the TRMP intends that any earthworks that impact or interfere with flooding require a resource consent, and that such works should confine any effects to the subject property and not result in off-site effects. But the TDC are basically saying it's okay because in a giant 1 in 100 year flood, when everything's underwater, you'll only be a little bit deeper. What about standard rain events? More water is now running into our paddocks and sitting, making land boggy and unusable. Again, our understanding is that any effect is not allowed. If someone actually came to our land in a rain event, they would see the impacts. The fill is cambered towards us when about half of the property used to drain the other way. The increased head of water coming into our drain makes it ineffective for our own paddocks. We don't believe we should have to drain our neighbours at our expense. There's no easement. The issue of excavating land in an area of significance to Māori has also been ignored. The developer knew what he was doing. Consultants had advised him and he was well aware of the FDS. The developer says that this is just rural recontouring, but this is development by stealth. The earthworks are clearly not to support rural one activities, but are to change the use of the land. TDC say that the effects on us are minor. What may be minor in an unused space is not minor on a working farm. We've been forced to destock, selling all of our cows and most of our sheep. This rural one property is no longer fit for purpose. TDC say that most of the fill has gone onto higher ground. All of these properties were at the same level when I bought my place 23 years ago. The land is only higher because of the incremental filling which has already taken place with TDC's blessing. In August, both our property and 175 were badly flooded. For the first time ever, it ran in from the Seton Valley Mapua Drive corner, where the neighbour had already begun to alter drains. We accept that we're low-lying and often expect some surface flooding, but we want TDC to ensure that the neighbours mitigate their own water and use their own drains and under-road culvert as it was intended. They are developing and disadvantaging us. It's still zoned Rural 1. They shouldn't be allowed to jump the gun, and they shouldn't be allowed to affect their neighbours like this. Thank you for listening, and please do look at the folders. I've brought a couple of folders, and I'd love some of you to take a look and consider what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Your 6 minutes was pretty good. About right, actually. So, so if you leave the folders, we'll keep those. And if you wish to circulate the slides, if you just send them through to Elaine will give you or Kelsey will just give you an email address and you can circulate the slides or pictures.
Thank you. The slides, the photos are in the folders that were on slides, so that's cool.
Right.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay. All right. Next up, we've got Kate Malcolm. Or do we? Just Kate's on Zoom. No? Okay. So next up, we've got Kristen Schaffner. Welcome, Kristen. So same thing, 5 minutes. I'll give you a nod at 4.5. If you're wrapping up, I obviously won't cut you off, but yeah, yes. Aim for 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm trying to make it short. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for providing me the opportunity to speak to you today. I would like to make some comments about the 7.4 on the agenda today, which is called Transfer of Executive Leadership Team Delegations Made by Specific Resolution. I understand that an omnibus resolution is sought to effect retrospective changes going back 5 years due to a constitutional change in 2021. I'm trying to understand which and how many documents are going to be changed also in relation to the financial implications of such change. But I did not find any attachment to this report and wonder if councillors were given more detail to confidently agree or disagree to the proposal made today. I also wonder if there's a reporting requirement of all these changes made once affected and when this would be. The example given in the report relates to a role that no longer exists. In recent months, the delegations register has been updated on a regular basis, and I took the chance to familiarize myself with this document. And this is what I found in relation to changing roles. Under 0.5 terms of delegation, it says, the delegation register is a living document and as such will be reviewed and amended from time to time. The delegation is normally to the position, not to the individual. The delegation survives any change in the occupier of any position. And further, from time to time, staff position titles will change. Where the duties of the newly titled position remain substantially the same, the delegations will automatically transfer to that new position until such time as the delegations register is updated. Giving those quotes from the delegations register, I have trouble understanding the explanation given to the report, which says that a former member's responsibilities could not automatically transfer to a new member of the executive leadership team. So I found it difficult to understand. And I'm also concerned that effecting changes retrospectively over such a long period of time may not be consistent with legal requirements. Applying the legality principle to what the Legislation Act states would mean that no legislation can have retrospective effect. I believe that's a very important principle because of the following example. Given the example, judging from the example given in the report, there is a need to sign a certain document that was there was a resolution made in 2020 on the report that was quoted, and that document is to be signed by a role that no longer exists, which is a management role. Judging from the delegations register, the executing of documents, however, needs to be made by an officer of the local authority, which then could be sub-delegated to a manager. But a manager, as I understand, is not an officer of the local authority. I understand, yeah. Would it not mean that such a resolution would have no legal effect at all in the first place? And what would it mean to then retrospectively change documents to that matter? So what I'm trying to say is the delegations register says, the resolution says it is delegated to a manager to sign certain documents rather than an officer. But I understand that the execution of documents needs to be delegated to officers, to the local authority, and then may be sub-delegated. And the next is the authorization of enforcement officers was also recently been changed in the delegations register. It was formerly sitting with a group manager, environmental assurance, and was then changed to the CEO. But according to the delegations register and the Act, appointment of officers can only be made by, again, officers of the local authority. So what would the legal effects of these changes actually mean?
So Kristen, you're at 4.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm basing this understanding on the organizational structure of council, namely that the executive leadership team does only consist of 2 officers, namely the CEO and the COO. All other roles are management roles, not officer roles. Our other councils in New Zealand list on their website the roles of the executive leadership team and expressively state when one member is also an officer. But I cannot find that this is the case for the Tasman District Council. In conclusion, I am of the opinion that the retrospective change sought to be agreed on today may require further clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. Next up, we have Matthias Schaffner. So I think you've probably got the drill by now. So 5 minutes, I'll give you a nod at 4.5. And if you're kind of wrapping up, we'll just let you complete.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Last week at the Motueka Community Board meeting, 2 board members mentioned cases in which TDC was not really responsive to requests from the public. I'd like to share my experience from the last 2 years. Last year in June, my wife filed a complaint with TDC, and until today, no one responded to this, addressing the issue. 2 months later, she filed another complaint. Until today, no one responded to this. Then it was my turn in August. I filed 4 complaints against staff, and until today, no one addressed the concerns I raised. In July last year, I reported an instance of alleged fraud to TDC, and another one in November, and another one in December, and another one in March this year, and another one in April this year. But I didn't get any response at all to this. In August last year, I made a request for official information. I got a response, I have to admit, but unfortunately not the requested information. So I reminded TDC again and again and again, but until today, the requested information was not released to me. So just imagine the situation that you are detained, and not only you are detained, but also your family is detained. What would be a reasonable question to ask? Maybe, why am I detained? So if you look at this piece of paper here, it's a search warrant. I know it's hard to believe that this is a search warrant. It's not, the pages are not numbered, not stapled, no signature, no identification number, no seal, and it's not described what is actually searched for, but surely this is a valid search warrant document. Last line in this document, if you have any inquiries relating to the search warrant, please contact Tasman District Council. I did again and again and again. So sometimes I hear the excuse, or maybe you addressed your concerns to the wrong person. No, I sent all my letters to the office of the CEO and the Waimea team. Or maybe you're just unhappy with the response. No, I just did not get the requested information. Or maybe there are legal proceedings and we cannot give you information. I made my request last year in August and the legal proceedings started this year in April. So you had plenty of time to release the information. And secondly, if a judge decides if a caravan is a building, what does this have to do with my question why I was detained? So last week I heard the statement from Councillor Maru at the Motueka Community Board, quote, "I can tell you the system treats everybody the same," quote, end. Does it mean that TDC treats everybody like I was treated in the last 2 years? Or does it mean that TDC standard is we just simply ignore requests for information and don't handle these? I requested a meeting with the chief executive a few weeks ago, but she refused this meeting. I wanted to clarify what's going on, but she has no interest. 2 weeks ago, I sent a letter with all the points that I talked in the last few minutes, but until today, no answer to this letter. So in my opinion, it means you're breaching statutory obligation knowingly, willingly, intentionally, again and again and again. I already filed a complaint with the ombudsman, but I mean, how can we go forward? Do you want me to file 10 or 11 or 12 complaints with the ombudsman? Is this what you want? I saw in the CEO report today that other people also go to the ombudsman and some of them already have 3 complaints there. I mean, is this what you want to have, right? Then just say it. To me, TDC's behavior in this regard is highly disrespectful to the people, and it's also unnecessary spending of public money. If people have to go to the ombudsman because you're not upholding your statutory obligations, you have a duty of care to avoid unnecessary spending of public money. And how about we look at Section 14 of the Local Government Act? It states TDC needs, quote, "conduct its business in an open, transparent, and democratically accountable manner," quote. And I have not seen openness, I have not seen transparency, and I have not seen accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. That draws us to the conclusion of the public forum, and we'll move on to the balance of the agenda. So next up, we've got declarations of interest. Are there any in relation to any item on today's agenda? If not, minutes to be confirmed. So there's the Tasman District Council minutes from the 21st of September. Someone prepared to move? Move Councillor Mailing. Seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. The confidential minutes of the same meeting. Moved Councillor Dakey, seconded Councillor Butler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We have a resolution to accept a late item in relation to land purchase in Motueka. Someone prepared to move that resolution? Move Councillor Mailing, seconded Councillor McKenzie. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And now we move on to the first item on the agenda, and that is item 7.1, Waimea Water Limited update. And David and Ken, if you'd like to come up to the front. Noting the apology for Mike Scott, CEO of Waimea Water. David, welcome. I'll hand over to you. I understand the presentation, so whether you're clicking the buttons or we're clicking the buttons, I'm sure we'll manage to move the slides in some way, shape or form.
One thing for certain, I'm not pushing any buttons, so as it were.
It'll be the first report we've ever had from Waimea Water that hasn't pushed any buttons, David.
Right, look, thank you very much, Mr Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to come and update you on where we've got to with the dam. So just a couple of comments from me before we begin. We are approaching completion and commissioning of the dam. We are advising no further change to the current cost to complete. We do remain, as we have mentioned before, in a dispute with the contractor. And final headline point from me is that we are becoming increasingly concerned around the dry weather and the ability to fill a reservoir to augment a river this coming summer season. So with those few comments, I'm going to introduce Ken. Ken is here deputising for Mike. who's on some well-deserved leave, and he'll take us through a presentation which will just go into a little bit more detail around the headline points that I've covered. Thanks again.
Thanks, David. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to present our quarterly sort of review. If we could, do I get control? Is that? Yeah. Once I get control of it, so that's
pushing button.
Yeah, I can see the backwards is forwards and back. Yeah, get back there. Yes. Right. Number 2. Yeah, thank you. So the dam and the spillway is largely what it is complete physically. As you can see from the photo below, we've actually started impounding water. So we've done the bulk of the civil construction. The emphasis now is on the pipes and the permanent outlets, and that's all down in the culvert area. And so we've claimed about 91 to 95% complete. And at the moment, we're using the temporary, we call plastic pipe, the HDPE pipe, to divert water back into the river. So that's our control mechanism at the moment while the contractors build the permanent pipe in the culvert, which will be commissioned next year. So really, we're operating in full compliance with our resource consents. We're allowing the minimum flow through into the river at the moment, trying to impound as much water as we can behind the dam to raise it up to the spillway level, which is our target for probably early next year. So the cost has remained at 198.2 as forecast in the previous presentations. There's no change to that. So there's no change to our operating budget. We have been challenged, as a lot of companies are, with insurance. And we're mitigating those increases by going out on tender. And I know that Mike and others have made presentations to a number of suppliers, both in New Zealand and overseas, to try and reduce our insurance costs. So really, we're expecting a February completion in the regards completion, meaning we cut over to the permanent pipe work sometime in February next year at present. Next slide, please. What do you want? Yeah, thank you. It's probably easier if you do it. So we need some more rain. We've got approximately 22 metres of storage at the moment, about 1 million cubes of the 13 million that it's designed to hold. So we want to make up that additional 12 million cubes as quickly as possible. Hopefully by Christmas, but it'll depend on Mother Nature. So we're filling as fast as possible, as I mentioned earlier, just allowing the minimum flow through the HDPE temporary plastic pipe. Unfortunately, all the predictions are that we're in for a dry summer season, dry spring, dry summer. And so, although I mentioned there, we're predicting we could be filled by December 23. It very much depends on Mother Nature, and it could be into next year before we get water over the spillway. Those graphs show that the current trends, the blue line at the bottom, is well below the current averages and historic averages. So we're in a very dry area at the moment. We had one rain event, which was the big peak in the blue line, but that was a very short peak and didn't add a huge amount to our storage, but was we need about 4 or 5 more of those. So around 80 millimetres, about 3 times between now and Christmas would be excellent for filling the dam, but that's probably pretty hopeful. So there's an increasing risk of further delays. Really it's about filling the dam and getting water flowing over the spillway. That's the critical thing. And then, of course, finishing the pipe work in the culvert. Next slide, please. So as I said, 91 to 95% complete means the physical works are largely complete apart from the work in the culvert. So we'll move on. We're in the tidy up phase now. As you can see, there's a lot of work going on, planting on the right-hand side. Below the forest, a lot of native plantings going on there and a lot of tidying up of the construction area, and the permanent roads are being established. Next slide, please. So the mechanical work is underway. This is a stainless steel, there's two pipes. We've got two outlets to this dam, as we've talked to you about before. We've got an upper and lower inlet on the inlet side, and that combines through a Y junction into a large stainless steel pipe, which you can see on your left-hand side there, which goes down the true right-hand culvert, and then splits again into two smaller pipes into cone valves, which control the amount of water we discharge back into the river. So that work is undergoing at the moment. We're also doing a control room fit out. So we've got a on-site control room. We've got quite a lot of electrical equipment. We've got no power, as you're well aware, coming back to the dam. So we've got a twin diesel set, which we've installed, which will provide the primary power in the event that the small hydroelectric, we've got a little 10 kilowatt hydroelectric generator going in, which will provide permanent power. The diesels being the standby and for larger demands. So that work is largely complete. The SCADA, the control system, is in operation. We can now control the temporary outlet from our office in Richmond, or in fact from a phone if we need to. And we've been testing that out over the last couple of months. So we now have remote control, at least of the knife valve that controls the plastic pipe HDPE flow. So we're going to fill the reservoir in stages, as we've been doing up to now. Dam Watch, our consultants, have set a number of hold points on the raising. Those hold points will allow the dam to saturate, if that's the right word, to stabilise, and they'll take a lot of measurements and ensure that it's safe to move to the next hold point. We've already been through 3 hold points and had the tick, and we've got one more hold point to go. Which it looks like it's going to be a month or two away before we can get the dam up to that level. And once that's ticked off, we'll be able to spill water over the spillway and call it an operational dam. Next slide. Program delays. Here we're 19 months behind the original plan, 14 months late. Practical completion, as I've mentioned, February 2024. It's 25 months behind the original plan, and that practical completion is just when we cut the temporary plastic pipe, the HDPE pipe, and move over to installing the valve. So it's not actually the finish of the project, it's when we move to the cone valves and begin permanent operation. So we're also doing some investigations at the moment on that cutover, because that cutover requires us to stop flow through the temporary pipe. And we're talking at the moment about how we're going to maintain the flow in the river during that transition period. Next slide, please. Cost forecast, no change from our last presentation. Still sitting nicely under the 198.2 and pretty much in line with the physical progress on the dam. Thank you. Next slide. So there's some residual risks. We're pretty clear we've got the known costs to complete the actual physical works. That's the work in the culvert you can see on your left. That's pretty much tied down now with our contractor, but there's ongoing unexpected contractor claims coming in, and I think it'd be fair to say that at the moment the contractor's sort of going through their books from the last 5 years and sort of extracting various claims they may have, in their view, missed, and bringing them all to a head at the moment. So the contractor's also disputing the decisions of the adjudicator that was 2.5 years ago now, and the independent engineer. So this contract is managed by a independent engineer who looks at all the costs coming in from all the claims coming in from the contractor, takes advice from us and makes his own decision on how much they should be paid. His decisions are being disputed as well. There are 8, actually there's 9, we got one more in yesterday, disputes being elevated to arbitration. And if we go through that full arbitration line, it would be possibly 2+ years of dispute. And Mike and the team have done a huge job of preparing for those disputes. Next slide, please. So yes, we've produced our annual report, which we talked about a few weeks ago and presented to you. We've also had a Richmond mall shop front with which was very, very well. A lot of people have commented to me. They went and had a look. A lot of the public. We had a video on the left-hand side there showing the sort of a time lapse of the dam, and we had a number of pictures up, and all well received by the public. We've had some very positive feedback for that update. So I'm happy to take questions now. That's the end of the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Thanks for presenting that in Mike's absence. So open for questions. Mike. Councillor Kinnamoth.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. Personally, I went into the Richmond Mall shop front yesterday and spent 20 minutes or a quarter of an hour in front of the TV there. Everyone should go there to see the size, the scale, the magnitude, and the problems you've faced to get this dam up and running. So congratulations to everybody who did that video.
Thank you.
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you very much through you, Chair. Look, kind of on the same topic, I mean, wherever I go out in the community, everyone just is desperate to see it. And so I know that that's not possible, but the more that you can do to make the information accessible and visible to people, I just encourage you to keep doing that all the time because, you know, I mean, I think people who have not had the opportunity to go up there, they will be totally amazed. They can't get up there, but let's put as much information out as we can.
Thank you. Councillor Greening and then Councillor.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. You indicated that there's about, was it 1 cubic or 1 cube currently in the dam at the moment? And you indicated that you're filling in stages, which is what I understood we were doing, and you had holding points. I'm just wondering, what are the capacity holding points? Is the first one at 1 cubic, or was were the earlier ones lower than the 1 cubic that we currently have? And what are them moving up?
Okay, I don't have them in front of me. There were 4 hold points that the designer requested. We've actually been through 3 of them on previous floods, and we've taken the reservoir down again to 1 million cubes that we're in at the moment, about 10% of the storage. So we've actually already qualified the dam for 3 of the hold points. The last one from memory is at 198.6. Which is just below the, we call the Tarpi layer, which is the approach channel to the spillway. And that's a 2-week hold. And that's where we're heading for now. So we're heading for what we call hold point D, the 4th and last hold point, which will hold for 2 weeks while Dam Watch continue their investigation into the behaviour of the dam. And then once we get that ticked off, we'll start allow water to spill over the spillway and go into the commissioning phase. So 4 hold stages, only 1 remaining.
So some people have noted in the public that the dam seems to be dropping. You've indicated it did drop, you reduced it. So can you explain why you reduced it or why there was a reduction?
Yes, we have reduced it. What happened was, as we went up through the second hold point, what we've done in this dam has been equipped with the very latest and most sophisticated monitoring equipment of any dam in New Zealand and probably Australasia. And one of those is a thermistor. I don't want to get too much into detail, but it's a thermistor string that crisscrosses behind the concrete wall. And that thermistor string at one point detected a temperature change, a minor temperature change, and that could indicate a small amount of water getting through one of the joints in the concrete. So in abundant caution, if you like, we decided we had the opportunity to lower the dam again, to inject some resin grout into that joint and seal it up, and then proceed again with the raising. So we took the opportunity to seal it up. Most dams you'd never know because they don't have that sort of sophistication. you'd never know there was a small weep if there was one. But our thermistor chain picked up the temperature differential, and we assumed it was water, small amount of water leaking through. And that was repaired, and now we're back into filling again.
Interesting. You've also indicated you've had 9 claims. I'm just wondering whether you know the total value of those claims at this point.
So, well, I think clearly the value conversation around the claims, and we've explained this endless times, is something that is strictly confidential, given the nature of the legal processes that are potentially to follow. So I wouldn't anticipate David or Ken being in a position to give you a value of the claims in a public meeting.
Well, we're not acknowledging or agreeing with them, but wouldn't it be prudent to know what they are? Because it doesn't affect any confidential arrangements.
Well, I think it's fairly important to the contractor in relation to the size of the claims. So as we've discussed before, the value around the claims is part of the legal process that may or may not proceed, depending on the outcome that the parties arrive at. At this stage, it's not public information.
So they do know the current total value of the claim, because I thought that was still being determined.
We continue to receive claims, as Ken has just alluded to, and I just not in a position, nor do I think it is helpful to speculate on what the total value of those may or may not be.
Okay. And just one final point. The presentation you've given, can that be circulated to councillors?
My understanding is already on LG Hub, but if it isn't, yes, it will be.
Fantastic. No, it doesn't. Well, I didn't see it last night anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Dave and Ken. I just have a question to ask with regards to, you said there's a risk that potentially we may not get enough water, so if we don't have enough rainfall. Does that risk come as a monetary risk to the dam project? And the other question is, what risk does that place on the river and the health of our river through that?
While we're filling the dam, we're working under a construction consent, which at the moment requires us to discharge the minimum flow in the river. So that's what we're doing at the moment, around 700 litres per second, 0.7 of a cubic, if you like, is being discharged from the dam itself. If that carries on for too long, yes, I guess we would have to look at a flushing flow to clean the river up, because algae does grow on the sides, as you probably noticed earlier in this year. And we did have a flushing flow when we lowered the reservoir to flush that out. But at the moment, I guess the risk is that we would be continuing a minimum flow into the summer season. So that is a risk in the sense that if we can't fill the dam by, say, February next year, it does have some financial risk as well with regards to what we do with the contractor to allow them to finish the work. And that'll be discussed by the boards quite soon.
Thank you. Any further questions? Just one from me. So in terms of the filling, does the consent enable, the construction consent or the other consents enable water to be released over the summer through the temporary pipe in the event that the dam hasn't completely filled and gone over the spillway? So is it possible to utilise the water, whatever water's in the dam, over the course of the summer under the consent requirements?
Yes, that's the view, but that's equally something we are clarifying with the regulator in the sense of if we want to get value from it prior to practical completion.
Okay. I guess the reason for the question is the dam is sized for 100 years worth of demand for both irrigation, urban demand, a significant proportion of which doesn't exist today. So even a dam that's 2/3 full or half full may well provide a significant benefit for if there is a very dry summer, particularly latter summer, even though it might not be 100% full.
Yep, just to clarify, we are doing everything absolutely possible to have that water available to augment the river to cope with the dry summer. And that's one of the values of the plastic pipe.
Okay, thanks, David. Anything further? If not, thank you both for coming in, presenting and being available to answer those questions. Someone want to move the resolution to receive the Waimea Water Limited update? Move Councillor Deputy Mayor Bryant, second Councillor Mackenzie. All those in favour, please say aye. Waimea Water Annual Report. Mr. Drummond. Welcome, Mike.
Through Mr. Mayor, this is a routine report to Council. Waimea Water Limited have delivered their annual report in accordance with the Statement of Intent and within the timeline provided for in the Local Government Act. They have also presented this morning, and that was an opportunity for councillors to ask any questions they had on the material within the annual report. So I'll take the report as read, and I will answer any questions you have.
Thank you. It's open for moving, seconding and or questions. Okay, so it's moved Deputy Mayor Bryant, seconded Councillor Mackenzie. If there's nothing further, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We have a retrospective approval of the submission on the government policy statement for land transport. Kim, this is in your name.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora koutou. Morning, councillors. So, yes, take it that the report, take it as read and understood, but happy to answer any particular questions you might have. And I've also got Marie Calendar if there are particular legal questions.
Again, so it's already been submitted to the government, to the current government, and it is the current government's government policy statement on transport.
Mr. Mayor, so we submitted to Ministry of Transport.
Yeah.
And they are continuing through. We haven't heard any further on the GPS yet. Last change of government, they issued it on the day before Christmas. So we need it to line up with the long-term plan process. So we'll wait and see. But
okay, so any changes that may eventuate post-election and the outcome of that will.
It's independent of that.
Independent of it. Right, thank you. With that understanding, happy to move.
Happy to move.
Councillor Maru, seconded Councillor Mailing. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Next one, Jenny McFarlane, in relation to the transfer of delegations. Welcome, Jenny.
Morning all, through the chair. I'll take the report as read, but I think it might warrant a bit of an explanation as to the background to this report. So we came across a situation recently, which we've explained in the report, where there was a previous resolution from 2020 to Mike Drummond in his capacity as the Corporate and Governance Services Manager. He's been the Group Manager of Finance for 2 or 3 years now. So when the changes, the restructure were made in 2021 and the Group Manager titles were changed, changes were made to the delegations register itself. So we're not talking about delegations, the bulk of the delegations which are in the delegations register. We're talking about the occasional resolution that council may have passed where authority was given to either the chief executive or a group manager to execute a document on behalf of council. So as you know, this will commonly be something like a sale and purchase agreement. It might be a contract. It might be a memorandum of understanding or agreement. And usually those are executed fairly soon after the meeting. So there would be, whilst we haven't had the capacity to go back and search 5 years through all the minutes and discover how many there are, I would, from my experience, I think there would be very few that we would be talking about here. So the options were for us to get another resolution from council at this point, and that's still an option for council today to just to simply pass the same resolution, but with a new group manager title, or have a more omnibus resolution that might capture any other that might come forward during that time. So you're not retrospectively approving something, you've approved something already to happen. It's simply that there's been that change in group manager title, and the majority of the functions that sat with that role of the corporate and governance services manager transferred to Mike in the new role. And yes, the delegations register does say that where there are changes in role titles, the delegations transfer with them. This is a more robust process to ensure that something isn't being executed where there's not a clear authority to do that. Marie's here as well because she's been involved in the Waimea Dam work, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. It's open for questions, comments, feedback, or moving or seconding. Councillor Murray and then Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just going back to the public forum presentation, Jenny, in terms of, do we know of any that have been signed in the gap of the picking this up that have been signed by the wrong title of officer? And if we don't know, and if there has been, what effect does that have on any contracts that have been signed in that manner?
This is the first one that I've become aware of, and as things are signed usually at that chief executive or group manager level, I think it would be picked up as it has done here, has been here when it's been realised, well, actually, the authority's been given to a position that doesn't exist anymore. And the authority does go to the position, not to the person. And in terms of officers, yes, we do have a chief executive officer, chief operating officer, but also in substantial legislation, you will see references to council staff as officers, dog control officers, environmental health officers. A member of a staff is an officer of the council. Obviously, the chief executive officer has a particular role and particular functions that are set out in the Local Government Act. But you can delegate to the chief executive. The chief executive can in turn delegate to staff. That's really not an issue to be considered. In terms of whether something may have been signed, there is that provision in the delegations register that does say that the delegations automatically transfer over from one position to the other if the role largely stays the same until the delegations register is updated. But what we haven't been doing until recently is making sure that those resolutions, those delegations that are created through resolutions rather than in the register itself, are still captured and made part of the register. So that's a process that the legal team is now organising going forward, so that if there are, because position titles change fairly frequently in the organisation, and we need to make sure that the delegations do transfer through to those, and that's all signed off by council.
Just one last one, it's 1.2 in the report. So I would have just assumed that the chief executive officer had that authority, but in terms of the resolutions of council, that might have been the group manager of finance was the person to sign the deed. It wasn't, and or the chief executive as well. Or was that just the mechanism of the resolution rather than the chief executive's delegation to act on behalf of council? It seemed weird.
So generally, delegations registers say that if a staff member holds a delegation, then their manager automatically holds it where they can. For example, I used to manage environmental health officers, but I didn't have the health degree, the qualification that you need to be an environmental health officer. So sometimes you can't always hold the same delegations as you do your staff. But again, I think it's better to have a clear resolution where it's clear that the chief executive holds that authority as well, as because, you know, if somebody's away, then you've got somebody else who can sign it.
So I think just if I'm really clear, the omnibus to catch up on the past, I'm a little bit nervous with, but what I'm hearing is it's actually just documents that haven't been signed yet, so it's just recognising who the new officer is. And you've talked to us before about tidying up process, so I get this as part of the tidying up work. So thank you. So I'm happy to move.
Okay, thank you. Move Councillor Maru, Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. So just to be clear, under paragraph 12 in the report where it talks about risks, the key point is the paper says that this reduces any risk for things that have happened historically. So I guess in doing it, does it create any new risks?
Not to my mind. I think we're addressing risk. As I say, there is that provision in the register that says delegations will transfer automatically if there's just a position title change and that the role and responsibilities are generally the same. But being a lawyer, being picky, I want to make sure that it's more robust than that. And, you know, it might be a significant document. So I would rather that, but we didn't want to have to come back, continue. And I don't think there will be many of these, but it would mean coming back each time to council with the report over again, whereas you've actually authorised what was to happen in that process. This is simply somebody actually executing the document on behalf.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Are there any further comments? Thank you very much for the extra explanation. Councillor Greening.
So as I understand it, this is just in relation to one document that's been identified already.
The resolution proposed would cover any other resolutions similar to this that may come forward. And as I've mentioned, I think this will be extremely rare because most documents are signed very soon after the actual resolution has been passed. And that's why we've simply limited it to 5 years, not gone back further than that.
Yep. So at the moment, it's just relation to one document or one resolution that you've identified?
The one resolution we've used as an example, and this will be addressing that, but this omnibus resolution would also pick up any other ones that may have been delegated to a group manager, and there's been a position title change since that time.
So how many of these issues have been identified so far then?
We haven't had the capacity to go through 5 years of minutes and look for these. We were a small team, as I mentioned yesterday.
So only one has been identified, and that is the subject of this resolution.
No, that's the example that we've given, and this resolution will address that one. But to save coming back with a report each time to council.
Yeah, but the question I asked is how many have been identified to date?
Just the one.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep, fantastic. Thank you. Got the answer eventually. I think it would be useful though to get a report either through the CE's report on if we identifying any others and what they related to, because I think this could be a quality issue that we maybe need to be aware of. That's all. So
okay, so in terms of awareness, no, so that's a good point, Councillor Greening. So if others are identified in the future, despite the fact if we pass this resolution, they can be attended to in terms of notification / information, they could still be circulated to council through, for example, the CEO's report. Cool. Yep. All good. Thank you. Councillor Kinamont and then Councillor Walker.
Just very quickly, through the mayor, this is just for a 5-year period. Prior to that, you're just ignoring them and don't worry about it. Is that what you're talking about?
That's correct. I don't think it would be ideal to go back for a longer period or an unlimited period. Those changes, I mean, this resolution that we're talking about goes back to 2020 for the Waimea Dam. There may be, the restructure was done in 2021. So yeah, it was really just a case of capping it at 5 years.
So we've probably got about 0.001% chance of somebody coming back that's more than 5 years old.
Yes, that would be my view, because as I say, most documents are signed fairly soon after the resolution is passed. This is, I would say, a fairly unique situation.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, through you, Chair. And just a quick one, just point of clarification, is that a could or we would be reporting back in the, light of trying to remain transparent for everybody? Your words, would or could?
Yes, if other ones are identified and being now executed under this omnibus resolution, we'll make sure it's reported back through the CE's report.
Okay. Right, thank you. So no further comments. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right, we could try and do the temporary road closures before we take a quick break. Shouldn't take too much time. So next item, Jamie, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. Happy to take the report as read and answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Jamie? Deputy Mayor Bryant?
I'm happy to move the report, and I do have one question. Just in relation to the Tākaka closure. And it seems that we're getting better and better at the notification and everything. But I noticed for others you've used stipulated they have to use a traffic management company. I'm assuming that we can still use volunteers on the Tākaka, but is that an ever increasing risk? And at some stage, should we look at having a traffic management company managing that process?
Through the mayor, yeah. Well, all of these events that involve temporary road closures require a formal traffic management plan, and those can only be provided by qualified people. So even though it might not be explicit in the report, all of these events have traffic management plans that are approved through our normal process using qualified
right.
companies.
What I'm talking about is on the day, and like I think for Richmond, under one of those events, we have to use a traffic management company to run the traffic management.
Yeah. Yeah, without getting into the gory detail of the code of practice for temporary traffic management, I'd like to think there's still a place for marshals and the volunteers, and it would be extremely disappointing if those days sort of were cancelled.
But ultimately, it's the plan needs to be done, and if you need to use a company to do that, that's one option, or you can have your own qualified traffic management planner with the right qualifications to do it for you. It could be part of your club or organisation, and then that might contain who does the on the day stuff. And again, it could be volunteers and marshals under that plan, or it could be using a company. I don't think we want to stipulate how it's done, other than we've got to receive it, we've got to approve it, and it needs to be done by a qualified person.
One of the closures we have stipulated, so.
All right, thank you. Move Deputy Mayor Bryant, Councillor Butler.
I'm happy to second it, but I've just got a query about, I mean, everybody may know this, but which budget does the traffic management come out of? And is it an increasing cost every year? Or given I'm just thinking about centre parades.
So generally the organisers pay the costs, right? Yep. So that's it. Yeah. The only exception to that is some of the Anzac parades where I think the council funds some of that, but that's an exception.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kittimer.
Thank you, through you, the Mayor. Following on from Deputy Mayor's comments, but more about the Richmond car rally. This is not the first time we've been asked to support closing of roads for a car rally. And I keep on harping on about carbon emissions, and I'm not trying to stop people have their fun, but I do think there should be some recognition of the carbon emissions that are going on from a car rally. And I don't expect a reply now, but I'd like to be able to spend some of your time or a traffic engineer's time to see how we can better recognise the carbon emissions in a car rally. So if I could have some of your team's time, so it's not a question, it's more sort of a request.
Okay.
I'll bring your attention to 9.1 of my report. What I've tried to say there is that it's effectively impossible to calculate at this micro level what the effects would be, because what we don't know is whether, if this event doesn't take place, would the people who were going to participate in that event either do nothing, or would they drive further away to attend another event? It's really, I don't know quite how much effort we should spend trying to do that.
Not a lot, I wouldn't have thought. Given we have tens of thousands of vehicles a day driving up and down the road, and if we focus on that, and if you listened to the report earlier in terms of transport emissions, I would say an almost imperceptible amount of those emissions come from car rallies of any shape or description, no matter how big or small. And I think we're probably much better to focus on the bigger issues around transportation and emissions than spend our staff's time on trying to mitigate the immensely tiny emissions that might occur in relation to car rallies. Any further comments? Second comment, Councillor Butler.
Sorry, look, I do just want to say that I think that it's a question of just drawing attention generally to emissions. That's all. I think that's Councillor Kinmoth's point. So, I mean, I totally agree that it is just a tiny drop in the bucket, but I do think that, you know, we need to be just, you know, acknowledging that it is, you know, an event which creates a lot of emissions. And how we do that, I'm not sure.
Splendid. Righto. Any further comments? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Jamie. Right, we'll break now briefly and back at 5 to 11.
Are we live or are we waiting for something? I can't hear anything.
That makes sense. My question is, we're taking out of enterprise, so the profit lens is gone because that's enterprise. We're putting into property. Do we still expect a return on investment for essentially staff accommodation?
My view is we should still expect a return on investment. The money will be coming from forestry reserves. We're required to make a minimum return of 5.5% on the use of other funds, and it's a good deal.
So it seems it's
I know what your question is,
but it
though.
seems
So
conflicting.
if we did and charged everybody, we could make a nice return. It would be an internal transfer between departments and the relationship with overheads, which I suppose, pick up part of the building cost. So, Mike, if you'd like to clarify the situation for Councillor Mario and the rest of us.
Happy to clarify. No, when a activity gets charged for a part of our buildings, in this building, for example, finance gets a charge for its share of the building cost. We don't do those as a cost plus. We simply recover costs. And so in this case, the provision of the space would be at the cost. That cost will include servicing the debt, obviously, that we take on board. So a small error in the report, I think, in terms of alluding to a return on that investment. What clearly the indication is that if you were to compare this investment with, for example, leasing space, we're much better off refurbishing our existing space than actually leasing new space, for example.
Okay, so it's been moved. Are you happy to second based on the answer you've received to that question? So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please, unless there's any further comment. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. You may as well both stay in the seat. Oh, no. Thanks, Nate. Richard, you stay in the seat. Adam, welcome. So this is an update around the Richmond office future accommodation solution. Richard, over to you.
So it's just the purpose of this report's three things. Let's just give you an update on the on where we're at with the building, and also for you to I'll give you some background on the Building Control Authority's stipulation in terms of the 12.5 years versus the 25 years. And the third one is to rescind the Clause 7 resolution of the 25th of November 21, which indicated we do pre-consultation as part of this LTP, and we're rescinding that. And my recommendation, or our recommendation, basically rescinds that. Then number 7 actually refers to the 27-37 LTP for consideration.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Richard. Open for comment, feedback, moving and or seconding. I'll move just to keep things moving. The only question I've got relates to the issue that's contained within the report over the 12 and 25 years, and we touched on this in a conversation the other day in relation to the strategic route discussion. I don't want to put in the resolution, but I would like us to look at the whys and wherefores of altering the strategic route process.
Can I just comment on that? I've been given some thought after our discussion on that yesterday. Is that there are, I think it's about 9 different routes through the district that we've given this categorisation. It doesn't only apply to council buildings, it applies to everybody else.
I realise that.
What we've got to be careful about is changing it for our own benefit to save us time or cost. Other people can't do that. So we've got to be fair and reasonable to everybody. If we've put this in place and gone through a process, and everybody, those with earthquake risk buildings on priority buildings, we've got to meet certain deadlines. We're probably going to be careful we don't put ourselves in a position where we change the rules for our benefit.
Well, if we just changed Wensley Road and this little bit of Queen Street in front of us, that would absolutely be a concern. If we looked at whether Queen Street is the strategic route or whether the ring route, which is the council's position of the, I guess, primary route for entrance and access in and out of Richmond, then I don't see that as being specific to us. It would potentially benefit other people on Queen Street. There's a process of public consultation to go through. I just think 12, 25 years is something we should look at. I'm not intending to put it in a resolution or make it a requirement, just asking a question.
By all means, we can review whatever policy we've done in the past, and council can do that. But I suppose my comment is what's initiating that review, and we've got to be really, really careful about that. If it's done because of a general perception across the whole district that we've perhaps got it wrong or things have changed, we have to change it, I can accept that, but I just caution council wanting to initiate a review that it can do on the basis of protecting itself here.
Your caution is noted. I'm not doing it on that basis. I'm suggesting we do it on the basis of is Queen Street the strategic route that we should be protecting in Richmond? That's the question. And some places have alternate routes and some places don't. In Richmond's case, there are 3 potentially strategic routes and we happen to have picked one. Anyway, open question. I've moved the resolution as is, so it doesn't include that. It's just an open question. Councillor Kinnamoth and Councillor Greening. Yeah.
And through the chair, Mr. Kirby, the request from the chair seems like a very onerous sort of job. Are we talking of hundreds of hours, thousands of hours to do all this, or just 1 or 2 hour? I'm worried about staff time.
Well, you'd initiate a special consultative procedure effectively under the Building Act, and you'd have to give your consultation document put together. How much would it cost? Yeah, and then you go through a 4-week consultation period. I do know that the emergency services has significant input into this because obviously if there's a major event, they need to get access through the towns and the like. You will note that in the last time we adopted this in 2019, there were no submissions. That was largely because there was a lot of input from the emergency services on protecting these routes. Yeah.
Is there a seconder for the resolution? Seconded, Councillor Hill. Is there any further comments? Just noting the resolution doesn't contain anything requiring or obliging the council to review it. Councillor Greening.
Yeah, thoroughly endorse the fact that I think it's the run route that should be protected, given that's where most of the servicing to most shops on Queen Street comes from. So I think that's more strategically important than the street itself, which is more a retail street. And I just note that note 3, is it note 3? No, note 3, resolution 3, motion 3, notes that Queen Street was classified. So I'm just wondering whether we are noting that we're going to review that position or change that position, because otherwise we're stuck with that position.
So I haven't included in the resolution that we will or should. I've just asked the question, and I would expect at some point between now and the 10-year plan and year, whatever it is, that one of the things that we will have to weigh up and consider alongside do you just continue to, because if this building becomes earthquake, whatever the word is, compliant, then actually that's the other way of addressing the issue. So I'm just leaving the options open. I'm not intending to include in the resolution that we do it, but I would expect that conversation to be had.
Well, I would be keen that we are noting that we are reviewing it, because otherwise there's nothing here that suggests that we're doing that. That suggests that Queen Street and Winsley Road is the designated strategic road, and I'll have with 12.5 years if someone came back in a year or two and we all got hit by a bus. So I would like it noted somewhere that this is what's going to happen and that we've challenged this assessment.
It will be noted for the public record. Based on your request for noting it, Councillor Greening.
And so when are we likely to see a review, given that we're indicating that that's what we want?
I mean, it's up to council. My strong recommendation to you is not to make that decision today. I think you need to get the Building Control Authority to come back and ask them to produce a report on the timings for reviews and the reasons for the reviews and the like, rather than try and link it to this discussion.
Well, can we seek that direction in our notes as well then?
Leave it with me, Councillor Greening.
Fantastic, thank you.
Righto. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further comment or question? If not, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next up, we've got the Saxton Field exemption for the management plan sponsorship policy. Again, Mr. Kirby and Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an update. I think there's 2 tabled reports this morning. The first one is the decision
Swap microphones.
Thought so. The two tabled reports. The first one is the Nelson City Council's decision of last week. So they had a similar recommendation to what's before you today, but that was lost 5-7. And instead they passed a subsequent resolution request staff engage with Central District Cricket on alternative options to retain the international cricket matches. I understand that Nelson City Council adjourned the meeting last week where they considered this, and they're meeting again later this morning. They've got new information to light. I'm not sure what that information is, but they are revisiting this decision later this morning. But at this point in time, our recommendation is that we put up to you is that we, rather than having subject to approval of Nelson City Council, we just approve the exemption and leave it at that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mailing.
Look, I'm happy to move this. Over the years, I've attended this venue on a number of occasions. It's a great family day. They have areas for kids where the kids can play away from the oval, and we get 6,000 people there, and I think they're well run, and we haven't had international cricket there for 6 years, so I'd hate to see us lose it over this. So I'm happy to support and move the motion.
Is there a seconder? Seconded Councillor Shellcrass. Other comments, feedback, questions? Councillor Butler, Mackenzie, and then Hill.
I agree. I support this because I think that for our young people, having the opportunity to see cricket matches of this, international cricket matches like this on occasionally is really important for them. And so I think it's a trade-off, and for me, I'm prepared to trade off the advertising for the benefits to young people of international cricket matches.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair. Look, I personally would prefer a complete disengagement between sport and alcohol. I don't support that approach at all. But actually, with regards to this particular paper, we're kind of in a no. I mean, we had a slide up there before about being between a rock and a hard place, because actually it's been announced that these games are coming to the region. There's been publicity, people have made plans. It's very hard to at this late stage to consider saying no, and I don't think that's acceptable to do that. So, but I do note in the paper from Te Whatu Ora that they talk about accepting the economic considerations with regards to this particular situation, but encouraging councils to engage with New Zealand cricket in the future. So, I mean, I would like a commitment in terms of what happens for future events. I mean, we need these events because we're paying $280,000 a year to maintain that facility, and we need the events. But actually, let's make some commitment to find ourselves in a different situation the next time this occurs.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Hill and then Councillor Dowler.
Well, that was well articulated and covered off a number of my points. I think there is a trade-off on this, and I take your point particularly around late in the piece. I hate it when we get these late in the piece decisions that people are booked to come, and I think in the 280,000 on the field and the block out there, to an international standard, I think is the main point about that. And we've all got the email this morning from Neville Mail, and I found that helpful in terms of the trade-off. So advertising standards, alcohol advertising promotion code. He suggests there are two relevant rules. Rule 3A states any alcohol advertising at sports events must target adults and should only be erected at events where 80% of those attending are adults. And 3B states alcohol advertising must be subordinate, implying it must not be the dominating advertising for the event. And ANZ has been the main sponsor supported by Ford. And I just suspect that actually the thing that's going to encourage people to drink at the event will be adults drinking at the event, because you can actually drink, you can buy alcohol there and drink there, and that's probably more of an issue than the boundary advertising for, anyway. So I will be supporting it, but I note the emails we've received for people concerned about this. And I think, you know, $2.5 million, I think in our DA are indicating is what the region will benefit by, and having any international sport in our region is a great thing.
Thank you. Councillor Dowler. Oh, everyone wants to say. Councillor.
I'm happy to support. One of the main reasons is that I have been involved in sporting events for several decades now and rely on sponsorship from wherever you can get it. Before I shifted up this end of the island, a lot of the sponsorship was done by breweries. The world has changed these days. The sporting teams are taking a lot more care of their players than what we used to do back in our day. Just my final comment is that young kids or middle-aged kids and alcohol, I feel, is actually quite a minor thing compared to the other substances that they are taking on board these days, which are becoming freely available quite regularly.
Thank you, Councillor Dowler. I've got Councillor Kinmont, Councillor Maru, and Deputy Mayor Bryant, and Councillor Greening.
Thank you. Probably like most of you around the table here, we've been inundated with emails, texts, phone calls, and yeah, it's a hot button topic in the community. There isn't one definite way looking at the responses, for or against. So I'm going to go and vote for it, only because it's in a controlled environment, that it's in a family environment. And I think that some people have to take ownership of their own problems that don't become my problems. So I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Councillor Kinmont. Councillor Maru.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just taking some advice, I'm going to declare a conflict in terms of the discussion as a district licensing chair. So it probably seems reasonable to abstain.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bryant, Councillor Greening, then Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, Richard, if I may. So are we aware of what the information that's been provided to Nelson? And if they don't change their decision, what's the process going forward?
I do not know what new information is being provided to Nelson. I've seen no copy of it. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Right. And what about if they have a contrary view to it? It seems that like we will have a different view to them.
If we have a different view to them, then I'd imagine their view would carry the weight. We've both got to agree.
Really?
So if we agree that can go ahead and they don't, I think their view will be overriding ours.
That's the way I work. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's a little concerning. What did you say? The status quo?
Yeah, I mean, if they choose not, or they can't come to an agreement, so their resolution, they declined the resolution, and they requested their staff to work with Nelson Cricket, and if we pass our resolution and they can resolve their issues, then we've stepped out of the way and we're not a block to them continuing those conversations. But if they can't reach agreement, then I suspect the contracts won't be signed or however that works, and then ultimately, so they're the ones signing up to the deals and arrangements, not us.
Right. So that would be a real shame if that happens. So hopefully they'll see, because there is a huge economic benefit in the region, having had I still have two son-in-laws who are keen cricketers and been to a international game there prior to COVID with them for a while. They were just in awe of the facilities and the standard of the facilities, just the whole thing. And they both live out of town in major cities. So really need to use because we invest a lot of money in that facility over time and ongoing for maintenance. And there's a real benefit from the TV coverage and all of those things. So I'm happy to support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in a similar position to Councillor Maru, so I will withdraw from table as well.
Yeah, Curtis Gold, thank you. So they'll both be noted. Councillor Greening.
Yeah, so this policy has been known for some time and is acknowledged earlier by other councillors, including Councillor Mailing. This is a family event with young people. And the overwhelming evidence is that alcohol advertising is harmful for our young people. And the purpose of supporting sports in the region and Saxton Field is to promote a healthy lifestyle for our young people. That's why this policy was adopted. Asai can still promote its brand, Asai, and it can also promote its non-alcoholic product range, like Charlie's and Phoenix products, without this exemption. The industry has been criticised for being unable to self-regulate, and this is their opportunity to show that they can self-regulate. This is essentially a test about whether we are interested in protecting our young people from harmful advertising, which is shown from overwhelming evidence that it occurs, or crumble in the fear of a consequence that Asai can choose to avoid. It's Asai's choice, and Tasman should not be intimidated by that or buckle under it. No one likes a bully. We should not be selling out our young people's welfare over this for a few dollars if we really care about our youth and we believe the overwhelming evidence, especially when Asai do have other options. We're only saying no alcohol. I hope Asai does the right thing. Now, I hope this council will do the right thing, but it sounds like it won't, because I believe they may well damage their brand if they do not do the right thing. So I do not support this resolution. I think it should be an alcohol ban on this. I believe Asai has room to negotiate and move, but they will be testing whether you crumble. And they'll use this as precedents for other venues, no doubt. So I'd like to call a division on this vote because I think it's really important for our young people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Greening. Are there any further? Councillor Walker, my apologies.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And sadly, I guess, Councillor Greening, I have to state that in my community, alcohol is readily available, accessible, and used and abused by our young people. And most of those young people won't actually make it to a cricket match. So I don't actually see that having it at a cricket match is going to hinder a certain group of our community because, as I've already stated, they already have access to it, whether they're of age or not. My biggest concern around the table today is where do we sit as a council when NCC seem to have the weight and the clout moving forward, and what does that mean to us? And although I don't endorse sport with alcohol being combined, and ideally in an ideal world, which sadly none of us live in, we wouldn't want to have the two mixing together. But our community needs the finances of this event. It also needs to get itself back on the map. And if this is how we can do it, I totally endorse it. I do ask though, where do we sit with regards to we make a decision that can be overridden by our friends down the road?
So in relation to this particular venue, because it is jointly run and managed through the joint Saxton Field Working Committee, and then ultimately both parties would have to agree to amend, change, or provide exemptions to the policies. It does require us both to agree. I guess you can look at that as they have more sway than us, but ultimately I don't see it that way. I'm fully confident that Nelson City will come to an agreement, and I agree with a number of the comments that have been said, hopefully in conjunction with Nelson Cricket, New Zealand Cricket and the sponsors. They will find a way through their resolution. My personal view is that we don't want to complicate that. And by passing this resolution, I think we then leave it up to them. If they can negotiate whether it's low alcohol beer, other products that the company produces that are not alcoholic at all. I'm entirely open to any of those outcomes. Coming back to Councillor Walker's point, my personal view again is that the link that, going to a cricket match, there will be alcohol consumed by a number of the attendees, and someone made the point earlier that that may well have a greater impact on people who are there who may be influenced than whether the advertising is or isn't contained within the venue. Now, someone who's integrally involved in both sports coaching, young people, again, there is always a balance, and I'm perfectly sure that an awful lot of people have entirely healthy lifestyles while still responsibly consuming alcohol. I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. So on that basis, I'm also happy to support the resolution as moved and seconded. So unless there's any further...
Yeah, can I just respond to that?
No, you can't. This is not a backwards and forwards and toing and froing. You've had and very eloquently put your perspective, Councillor Greening, and you've called for a division as you are entirely entitled to do. And
I'm just conscious that
now I've shared my view, and now we can move to a vote.
I just think I'll undermine negotiations doing this, but anyway.
So if anyone hasn't spoken and wishes to the debate, thank you. I will look to put the resolution via division, which will be called by Elaine. Everyone clear?
So the motion's on the screen with the removal of subject to the approval of Nelson City Council in clause 3 and by division. Deputy Mayor Bryant?
For.
Councillor Butler? For. Councillor Dakey?
For.
Councillor Dowler?
For.
Councillor Ellis, abstain. Councillor Greening?
Against.
Councillor Hill? For. Mayor King?
For.
Councillor Kinnimont?
For.
Councillor Mackenzie? For. Councillor Mailing?
For.
Councillor Maru abstained. Councillor Shallcrass? Councillor Walker? For. Motion is carried 11-1.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the quarterly Treasury report. Mike and James. So page 111. Mike, over to you.
Mr. Mayor, James Backnell, our finance analyst, will just lead this report.
James, welcome.
Good day, everyone. Has everyone read the report?
I think you can safely assume that, James.
Good. I won't read it out to you then.
Okay. And if they haven't, I suspect no one's going to put their hand up.
Okay. The important points, our net debt position is slightly lower than it was at the previous meeting, just due to a reduction in the amount of short-term borrowing we have. There are no aspects of the Treasury policy that we're in breach of at the time of the report, and don't expect to in the next few months anyway. Does anyone have any major questions about our Treasury position you'd like to ask?
Right. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. So it's been taken as read. Are there any questions in relation to the Treasury quarterly update?
So I'm hoping it's just in relation to the pre-funding of loans through the LGFA. What sort of rate are we getting those at? Is it worth doing that or we're taking a bit of a punt?
Well, typically there's two aspects we have to look at. One is what we would borrow at now. Is that going to be better or worse than what we would get if we waited until the loan matures? And the current forecast rates are about the same for the next few years, so it doesn't actually matter when we take it. But yes, to your point of actually making money, we are making smaller money. So we borrowed about 6.08 and we're getting about 6.4 in the bank. But that isn't the purpose of why we do it, but it is nice to still make that profit.
The other aspect, and one of the key reasons we pre-funded, seen as very positive move by Standard & Poor's when they're looking at our credit rating.
Right. Which they're about to do or have done, haven't they?
We have had our annual review. We're expecting the results of that review out within the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. Any further questions about anything contained in the Treasury quarterly update? Thank you. Move Councillor McKenzie that report be received. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mailing. If there's nothing further, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, next up, financial report. Mike, you remain in the proverbial hot seat, and Paul, welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is our regular quarterly financial update to Council. Paul Regan, our Senior Management Accountant, will present the report. We'll take the report as read, but Paul may want to draw your attention to any key matters that he thinks are pertinent for councillors to pay particular attention to.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, Paul. Over to you.
Thank you, councillors. So the main points that I'd like to draw your attention to are firstly, the budgets contained in this report are updated to include the carry forward budgets from last financial year. At a total level, net controllable deficit is close to budget. Capital expenditure is behind year-to-date budget. It is currently tracking at about the average for the last 3 years. Staff are undertaking a full reforecast of capital expenditure currently to map out for the rest of the financial year and to project any carry forwards, and we'll be reporting on that next month. There are some operational revenue challenges in environmental assurance. Those have been reviewed internally, and we are engaging an external consultant to review these further and provide recommendations on the level of fees and charges. Operational costs are running higher than expected. However, much of this is offset by higher operational revenue. We will be undertaking a revenue and cost reforecast very soon following the capital reforecast, and then report on that. This does include reforecasting employee-related expenses, which there are increased take-up of benefits and cash benefits, which sort of reflects the cost of living, which sort of add to the total wage expense. Leave balances will be being reviewed as well to check the accumulated balances there and make sure we're not carrying excessive balances. And lastly, maintenance expenses are running higher than year-to-date budget, and that is mainly in the area of areas of roading and water supply, where there has been more reactive work being undertaken. So thank you, and if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the added emphasis or areas of added emphasis, Paul. Open for questions, comments, or moving and seconding. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair, and thank you very much for your report. And I am happy to move. I guess maybe just a bit of a question around the management approach. I mean, the report identifies that corrective actions will be required to address the budget variances. So maybe just a confirmation that, it is our intention to work within the existing budgets as per the 23-24 annual plan, that actually, will it require stopping some work, or how do you see that playing out?
Obviously, we want to remain inside the budgets. and we'll have a better idea of that when we do the reforecast for CapEx and OpEx. The first 3 months of the year is 25%. Obviously, another month with October results would be helpful for us to get a firmer picture. There's a lot of things happening in that first 3 months of the year, which make it a little bit difficult to draw full conclusions from, but I'll be feeling much better sort of with the October results in hand.
For any of you who are wondering, Nelson City have now passed an alternate resolution that will enable the cricket to proceed. Sorry for interrupting. Okay, thank you. Further question, Councillor Kinnaman.
Thank you. On page 121, revenue, budget revenue 220 million. Actual was 54 million. And the line item there that worries me a bit, targeted rates. We've got a budget of 45. We only got 11 in round figures.
Full year budget. So tracking this. Thank you, Councillor. We are tracking year to date just over our budget. Our full year budget is 45. And with the phasing of those budgets, we do expect the increased amounts coming in later in the year with more properties coming online with growth, etc. So we are, as far as our year-to-date budget is 45, we are, sorry, our full year budget is 45, our year-to-date is 11, and we are just over 11.
Anything further? Councillor Mailing?
Just a quick comment in relation to the capital budget. So we're already saying that we're tracking behind, and that caused me considerable concern earlier. So I would like to be assured that the staff will monitor that going forward, because I don't want to be in the same position at the end of the year as we were last financial year. So it's not you track it, but the gentleman behind you to your left actually delivers it. And he knows who I'm talking about. So I would just want to make sure that we take as much action as possible to be as close to that budget as we've indicated.
Thank you, Councillor Mailing. Any further questions have been moved? The receipt of the report? Seconded, Councillor Mailing. If there's nothing further, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Machinery resolutions.
I'm happy to move.
Move.
For a late emergency.
Deputy Mayor Bryant, seconded. Councillor McKenzie, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Chief Executive's report. Leonie, on behalf of Janine, over to you.
Kia ora koutou. So I take the report as read, noting that this is Janine's report and I'm presenting it. I do have some material that I could share if there were questions around certain aspects of the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have a couple of questions, Leonie, and it's around, I guess it was around one of the comments in public forum in terms of how we seek information. And I think I was quoted as making a statement in a community board meeting that we're all treated the same. So I've also experienced the Lagoima process, and it seems to have got longer and harder. And I guess I'll balance that in saying that I know that some of the questions the team are getting are potentially questions that some people already know the answers to, and it's just clogging the system. But how do we get throughput for real answers and try to get some movement on an end where we just seem to have a breakdown in relationships from both the person seeking the information and council providing it? There has to be a way forward somewhere, I hope.
I would love a way forward too, Councillor Murray. Look, I don't want to be defensive here. Look, we have quite a lot of vexatious complaints coming through right now, repetitive, targeted, and they are consuming a huge amount of time for staff. We've got one person who actually looks after Lagoima. They don't answer those questions. The Goimas come in, we note them, we acknowledge them, and then they go into the organisation to answer, because some of them are quite technical and quite complex. Some of them can take days to pull the information together, so that can delay. Secondly, around the complaints, sometimes people don't like the answer we give, so they ask in a different way, and then a different way, and then a different way, and that's challenging to try and for some people to understand. The processes of the council are quite complex, and some people don't understand why we do what we do, and we do try very hard. I do have Leaf here. He not putting him in the spot here, Leaf, but he does manage the Lagoima team, and they are under a lot of pressure. There is huge amounts. I would like to say we do treat everyone the same. And a lot of people are very satisfied, but you never hear about them.
Yeah, so I guess something's shifted in the last 3 to 5 years. So in the past, just a mere community board member could directly ask a question and get an answer pretty quickly. That doesn't seem to be, and I like the fair system. I like that, and I guess, because we're publicly, I also had a couple of staff reach out to me, and I know that they're treated exactly the same. If a staff member has a private issue, then that also goes through the Lagoima. But it just seems, because I get a feeling that sometimes it's not just the recipient who might not like the answer, but it may also be sometimes we don't like the answer that we have to give, and I just. How we make that more open and transparent. I heard somewhere or read somewhere in here that they were posted on the website, the responses to Lagoima questions. Just somewhere where you could find that would be really handy, because I often don't find out some questions. I'm sure I've read in here somewhere that there was some questions that have been asked and they were posted on the website. Did I get that wrong?
5.2.
5.2, thank you.
Please.
Through the chair, yes, we have posted some on the website, and we're looking at doing more. Is the answer there?
Because I want to say, I feel for the Lagoima team. It just seems every question the council now is yours. So please don't give this as a criticism of the Lagoima team. It's just we have obviously.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kinnemont.
Just a quick question. I thought that we were going to have a workshop on this.
I was about to suggest that the whole information Lagoima processes, I think it would be worthwhile understanding the volume, the fact there's one person trying to corral that all, the fact that when they go out in the organisation, the people who are there to do building consents, to do resource consents, to do all the other activities for the 95, 99% of people who aren't making Lagoima requests are then diverted to respond because of the timeframes and the requirements to then take often days to go through all that information to feed back to the one person whose job it is to coordinate all that, and then their job is to obviously feed back to the complainant or the inquiry. So I think it is a good idea for us to sit down and understand just how much that takes in terms of time, resources, money, what the consequential work that is impacted for the other people who are just waiting for their response to a resource consent or a building consent or other services of council. And then we can have an informed debate about how you make it better, in inverted commas, how much of our resources is being consumed by a very tiny percentage of the population, and whether that is unacceptable, acceptable. Do we need more staff in that space to provide better responses? Well, that again, as we all know, when we come to resources, has to come from somebody, somewhere, and be paid for by somebody. So yes, Councillor Kinnemont, I suggest it would be a good opportunity to have a council workshop in relation to the whole way that works.
That's obviously a hot button topic.
Honestly, it drives me insane. The amount of resources that we consume responding, and there are absolutely genuine inquiries with genuine information, and as Leonie says, a lot of them are responded to and you never hear again because the people get the answer in the time frame. a small percentage of them that consume an enormous amount of time relatively, is the bit that drives me to somewhat of distraction. Given the organisation's under massive pressure resource-wise, we know we've got staff under pressure, particularly in building and consenting. Quite a number of these inquiries revolve around those sort of activities. And it's the same people having to provide the information, the feedback, the responses, and then responding again, and then potentially responding again. So, you know, they only can do one thing at once. And when it's over here, they're not doing what we might be wanting them to do over there. And there's ways of resolving that by providing more people. But I suspect, given the tenor of the conversations around the council table recently, that, you know, more people is not necessarily the answer that we're looking for.
But I just ask that we look at the process, so I get an understanding of where the blockages are, what the problem is, even though there is a few dictating the blockages, but what is the process? What does the Laguna mean? From a newbie around here, I'd like to have a little bit of a helicopter view as opposed to in detail.
So we'll leave that with Leaf.
Yeah, through Chair, I understand that a workshop has been organised for this coming up later in the year.
There you go. Good job. Righto. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair. Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the part of the report, paragraphs 5.8 through to 5.11, threats received by council. You know, I think that, you know, generally speaking, staff and managers get up every day, come to work to try to do the best job that they can do. And I think that if people are actually concerned about their personal safety because of their work situation, I really just want to acknowledge the impact of that on staff. I think that that's a hard place to be in, and yeah, I think it's quite disturbing in terms of the well-being of our staff and our responsibilities as a good employer.
To the chair, thank you. And also, I did just note that we are not putting names on some emails now because of targeting, which is a shame. I think that loses that personal touch, which I think this council is very good at. So hopefully we can return to that at some point.
Okay, thank you. Anything further in relation to the Chief Executive's report? Oh, sorry, Councillor Greening.
So just in relation to the public forum issue, Mr. Schaffer raised the concern that he has not had any response over a period of 2 years to his requests, which I find extraordinary.
Yes, you would if it was true.
So can we get some clarity over what's going there for councillors so we understand what's going on, and maybe the CEO would like to maybe clarify what has gone on. I mean, just more broadly, I have to agree with Councillor Maru. I believe the culture in Lagoima has got incredibly bureaucratic, and I have seen public organisations other than this one drown in Lagoima due to the way that they approach the Lagoima process. And it was kind of refreshing when I first joined this council, how transparent and accessible staff were and how quickly questions like this were dealt with. And I just do wonder whether the Lagoima process is not really fit for this type of council and the way that it has been managed.
Right. Look forward to your attendance at the 7th of December.
As always.
And I'll come across to the Chief Executive to cover off the issues that were raised in the public forum to the extent that we're able to, given the legal proceedings that are involved.
I can't say too much, but there is some legal proceedings in place. It does go about 2 years. It's been quite a difficult one to deal with in terms of correspondence. We were sending emails. We were directed to only send by letter. So we've done written correspondence, which caused delay. Sometimes there was letters coming back. They kind of crossed. I think that happened on one occasion. We have got pages and pages of responses.
I'm actually sitting down with these people at some point and going.
This is a regulatory matter.
So, Councillor Greening, if we can discuss this, but there are legal proceedings in place. This has been a long multi-year, so
I'm sure there are now.
so a range of council staff have been involved over a long period of time. In the discussion in this forum, I doubt the CEO is going to want to get into the whys and wherefores of all the meetings. If they can, I'm sure we can circulate after the meeting an overview of the scope of the meetings / correspondence that have been received. But in this regulatory space, it is a bit tricky to sit here in a public meeting, given the legal proceedings that are going on currently with the people who appeared in the public forum, to have too much of a discussion about it.
So can I just ask the question then? During the Lagoma process, do we sit down with people who are sending repetitive letters?
Through the chair, if their information is complex, we may well sit down with them. This isn't about Lagoima problem. This is not a Lagoima problem. This is a complaint that was received. We visited the said person and we have followed through on our regulatory matters. The Lagoima has really been around our back office processes, which we have responded to. So I don't believe that we haven't done what we needed to do. This isn't the complaints to us is about a complaint against them. So it's tricky. It's a really tricky one. And we don't get these very often, but these can go on for a very long time. I would rather not go into the whys. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just picking up on the threats, I mean, again, this has been a trend that has been growing pretty much along the same lines as the frustration with our Lagoima processes from the general public. And I think that should be something we need to be aware of as a governance group, how we can mitigate that, because I think they're correlated.
I look forward to your attendance on the 7th of December. Right, anything further? Councillor Kinnamonth.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Clause 8, Nelson Tasman First Tranche Region Scoping Exercise. Page 131. How's that going? Are we moving forward or is it stagnating? Are we getting buy-in from all the parties? Just a bit more of a heads up than what I've just read in the 5 clauses there, that's all.
To the chair, so First Tranche Region is still progressing. The report will be going through to MFE tomorrow. It's due. I'll be signing that hopefully today or tomorrow in Janine's absence, and everyone's very much on board. Of course, it's all a bit up in the air at the moment with the change in government, so we're just carrying on as if this is going to continue. Yeah, so no, it's gone very well, and the staff have done an excellent job, and shout out to them. Really, it's been a huge amount of work.
Thank
you.
Will
we see the report sometime or other?
I'll come back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Has there been a mover and seconder for receiving the move? Councillor Dallas, seconded. Councillor Maley. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Right, next up.
The Mayor's report.
Oh yeah, the Mayor's report. Yes, to find. So again, I'll take it as read. I guess one of the big things we've been working through is obviously there's been a lot of discussion around the 10-year plan. And I think it's worth noting that obviously while there's the conversations within the region, just looking at a lot of the anecdotal evidence is coming out of newspaper reports around the country. I guess it highlights the fact that everyone is in a similar boat when it comes to managing the expectations of communities and the costs that are coming forward through pretty much every council's 10-year planning process. And that seems to not be a matter of how big you are or whether you're rural or urban, or it's whether it's Auckland or Christchurch, Wellington or Hamilton or Tasman, Marlborough, Nelson or Gisborne. Different issues, different challenges, but pretty similar results in terms of some of the early feedback about the challenges, particularly financial, that councils are facing. Also want to acknowledge, obviously, since the last meeting, the news of Chief Executive Janine's decision to resign. And I'd just like to, I guess, further acknowledge in the public forum how much I've appreciated Janine's commitment to this organisation, her leadership. I've had a very good working relationship with Janine in the time that she's been here. And I think she has done a wonderful job in terms of delivering for our organisation around the culture. And I know that we hear from time to time, as we have in the public forum, around some of the things that people don't appreciate or are unhappy with us. But when I'm out and about in the community, talking to people, no one really loves their rates going up. You know, there's always something that's a bit of a needle if their building consent hasn't worked out that well, or their resource consent's been delayed. But I think most people acknowledge what a bloody difficult job it is to manage all the competing expectations across the community. Many of our challenges are between, and reflecting on the discussion we just had, where one ratepayer might complain about another ratepayer, we get in the middle, we have a responsibility to both of them to try and resolve the issues. And it's often very difficult to come to agreements or arrangements, particularly in that compliance regulatory space, where we have a set of rules to follow, where you're going to satisfy both sides of a complaint. And I think we know to be realistic about our ability to keep everybody happy. For those who have been here a while, I suspect you're well and truly aware of, you're not going to keep all the people happy all the time. And for those who are new, I bet you're rapidly coming to the realization that you can't keep all the people happy all the time. But it does seem to be becoming harder. And how much of that revolves around us as an organisation, and how much of that is a wider societal issue around people's dissatisfaction, concerns around governance in general, from central to local, I'm unclear. So I just want to acknowledge Janine's role in, I think, continuing what is by and large a really positive and constructive culture in the Tasman District Council. So yeah, other than that, I'll leave it as a bit of a list of stuff that I've been seeing, some of which has been very enjoyable, particularly attending Murchison and doing the food judging thing. So some of the little things that I get to do are the things that, kind of keep a smile on my face, because some of the other things, like, doing this role, not so fun. All right, open for comments, feedback, questions. Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just acknowledging your 1.7 and congratulations to Councillor Dowler on the Paul Harris Fellowship. So significant congratulations.
Councillor McKenzie.
So what was the dish of the day? You got a recipe to share, or?
No, there was a wide variety of dishes. Some very tasty, some not so much. But it was quite interesting to try and keep the same, and a couple of them said, because they were all watching, so all the participants were watching you judge, and they were saying, you just can't tell which ones you like and which ones you don't. So I obviously did a better job of disguising my emotions than I do when I'm sitting up here. So clearly, when it comes to judging food, I'm better at keeping a poker face than I am in running a council meeting.
Might be an option.
Councillor Kinnemont.
Through you, the chair, and Councillor Maru probably stole a bit of my thunder here, that I'd like to recognise what Barry has done to the community, but also not take it away from Barry, but we are a community of volunteers. And there's a lot of people come around here today, put their time and effort into something that is a cause for them that we should not ignore, and we should thank them for coming in and giving us their expert help or advice or wanting us to do things. And we're a community run by volunteers, not by paid people. And I'd like to recognise all the volunteers and the time that people put in. And so thank you, Barry, but also thanks to all the other volunteers.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnemont. Point well made, and my omission for not recognising Barry in my original thing. But again, I think these sort of awards, whether they're awards we provide or awards that other people provide, are all about, and I think just about everyone who ever receives one always acknowledges the fact that there are so many other people involved in both their successes and the things they've achieved, but also acknowledging that, we literally wouldn't have a community if we didn't have volunteers. So point very well made. Anything further, Deputy Mayor Bryant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, like to acknowledge, as you did, Janine's work, and just a question, there'll be an opportunity when Janine's present to do that, will there?
Yes, I'm sure there will be between now and when she finishes.
That'd be great, because I think there's a number of us around the table would like to do that. And just to acknowledge Barry and the work he's done, particularly in the Motueka community, that's really impressive. And one of those people that just works quietly away in the background doing all sorts of stuff we don't know about. We'll find out about later. Yeah. And then thirdly, just thank you for going to the sports centre, the cooking competition. There was more than one reason, as you will be well aware. And I think I might have actually got an option around one of those things that they talked to you about. I'm still working on it.
Yes, you don't really get invited to Murchison for just one reason.
No, exactly.
Obviously, someone's worked out if you invite me for something related to food, that,
what the hell?
you can get a whole lot of other issues into the same conversation.
So that was appreciated.
Sorry, no worries. All right, if there's nothing further, I'll move my report be received. Seconded, Deputy Mayor Bryant. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. I think that draws us to the conclusion of the open agenda items. So we're half an hour before we break for lunch. So we'll try and get through one or other of the in-committee items. So at this stage, we need someone to move that we go into committee. Moved Councillor Mailing, seconded Councillor Hill. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.